Good afternoon, my friends. Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We got an exciting one this time, and this show will be live on November 8th, Election Day. It's critically important. You watch it, you spread it out all during that day, especially in the state of Oregon. But the title of the show this week is Why Are Republican Candidates Getting Democrat Endorsements This Election Cycle? I haven't really seen this kind of thing before. In the last few weeks, we've seen Tulsi Gabbard leave the Democrat Party, claiming they just don't have room for her love of America based on their economic and social policies against families and love for endless wars. Tulsi has endorsed several Republican candidates for Congress since she left the party. And now we have the opportunity to talk to a Democrat who recently endorsed the Republican gubernatorial candidate in Oregon. George Carillo is a prominent Democrat leader, former governor candidate in Oregon, Marine, and he endorsed Republican Christine Drazan for the seat. George, welcome to the Rob Maness Show, sir.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on. It takes courage. Most people in your position that are in the Democrat Party probably would not have come on this show because and even though I have lots of friends that are still Democrats and have supported some. But let me just start off with, will you leave the Democrat Party?
Time will tell. I think right now for me, I'm really disheartened with the Democratic Party. I don't believe that we're going in the right direction, whether that's with our foreign policy, within, our domestic policy and running our states. Right now, we have lack of accountability within our government. And that is being controlled by the Democratic Party right now. And they're doubling down on a lot of rhetoric in order to scare people to retain power. And that's not something that I believe in, especially as being a Marine. We provide that level of safety and comfort for people that are living here in the United States. And we make the ultimate sacrifice to go overseas and to protect this nation. So that way we don't have dictatorship here, that we have freedom of press, freedom of our Constitution. And I'm just seeing that we are going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I've watched a few pieces on Christine Drazan in her race in the general here. I haven't gone back to look at the primary, but she seems like a very reasonable person. She cares about, the biggest issue I think she said is homelessness in the state. She talks about moms can't afford gas for their cars. They're out shopping, and the reason why she's doing well is that moms do the grocery shopping, and they're having a tough time getting enough groceries and having enough money to get groceries on the table, if they have jobs, getting the kids to daycare, getting to work, getting home from work. That all requires fuel, and it's just very expensive. And so what are the three big issues that her opponent is running on, if you can talk about them a little bit, that really just drove you to back the Republican?
So, Christine Drazan, she has a very clear plan because she understands what the issues are, and she's been campaigning on those issues, where her opponent, Tina Kotek, which is part of the Democratic Party, has really been focused on a scare tactic and really not talking about the problems that Oregonians are facing today. And that's because she was Speaker of the House. And so her failed policies, her failed leadership is what has driven me and many other Democrats to support Christine Drazan. She's focusing her campaign on abortion access and passing new measures for gun laws, and then she talks about the housing crisis that we have here. And here in Oregon, we're very unique because we are a very progressive state.
Right.
Back in 2017, abortion access was cemented into our state constitution. There's nothing the governor or the legislature can do about changing that. A woman here has the freedom of choice to be able to get an abortion all the way up until 40 weeks. So it's not an issue here. So even if we elect a Republican as a governor, there's nothing the governor can do to restrict that access.
And that's really what the Dobbs decision did. The Supreme Court went with the Constitution, which says that the federal government really shouldn't have this power, and they put the decision back to the state level, which is closest to the voters, right? I mean, that's one of the things that when I get called an extremist, that's one of the things I get called an extremist about, because I am 100% pro-life. I'm both against abortion, but I'm also against the death penalty. So I get called extremist by both sides sometimes. But what I'm really on, though, is probably what you're on, since you were a Marine, is the oath to the Constitution. You know, I spent 30 plus years in the Air Force, and the only rock, the foundation that never changed, that was that we thought anyway that everybody that served in the U.S. government, whether you were in uniform or not, took an oath to the Constitution, and that was sacrosanct. You know, so if the Supreme Court makes a decision like Dobbs, I'm actually for that, because it puts that responsibility and the power where it's supposed to be under the Constitution. And like you said, Oregon's a very progressive state. No governor is going to be able to change that based on what you guys have done. But what about, except for you? Say again?
No, what I was saying was, that's one of the things that's like, it's not an issue here in Oregon. So why do we keep campaigning and keep talking about it? Let's talk about the real issues. You know, Oregon, especially in the Portland metro area, has had a 300% increase in crime since 2019. Last year in 2021, we broke our homicide death rate. This year, we are on track to break that record. So 2 years in a row, we're breaking homicide records. We're 48th in the nation for graduation rates, 15th in the nation for mental health. We're the second most expensive state in the United States when it comes to inflation. These are the things that are worrying just regular people like myself and so many others that unfortunately the Democratic candidate doesn't want to talk about.
Well, probably because as a Speaker of the House, she supported a lot of the policies that have been the root cause, like the increase in crime. Am I right about that?
Yes. You know, the Democratic Party, when George Floyd was murdered, was to defund the police. Now, I'm also prior law enforcement officer too. I was a sheriff deputy. And I will say, just like in every industry, there are bad apples, and there needs to be police reform in our criminal justice system to be able to provide better diversity of law enforcement officers and better training. But that doesn't mean that because of what has been happening, you know, throughout our nation's history, is that we just dump the police. And that failed policy right there, that rhetoric, is what has Portland and Oregon as a whole in this terrible state. You know, we've legalized hard drugs in this state. It is an open market for gangs and cartels to commit crimes and enslave. Human trafficking is a major issue in this state also. And now they have an open market to be able to sell any sort of hard drug here in this state also.
So let me ask you this, George. Is the fentanyl death rate pretty high there? Have you guys started seeing that? I mean, if they've legalized hard drugs, that is going to be a natural market for the cartels and anybody else that wants to bring that in.
So we know through our intelligence that the Sinaloa cartel is alive and well here in Oregon, and we are not a border state. And, you know, they are running a great operation in rural Oregon. And so it is a real problem. And fentanyl is just one of the many things that we are struggling with in Oregon. Our overdose rate has increased by 20% from last year to this year. And it is a problem that is out of control right now. And we're seeing it in our homeless population. When I was running for governor, we had 5,000 homeless individuals in Portland, 8,000 statewide. That number has now shifted to about 8,000 in Portland and 14,000 statewide. You know, and you know, my race ended in May, and it is only November.
Yeah. Wow. So can you talk about Christine Drazan's plan to deal with this issue, the crime issue? Does she have a specific plan that she's putting out there?
Yes. So, Christine has a roadmap that I believe is very realistic and something that can happen. She wants to be able to provide a level of accountability. She has already said that she is going to dismiss all of the agency heads and put in new leadership with a measure of accountability. On top of that, she's going to increase funding for our police departments. Right now, Oregon, another category where we rank at the bottom of is police presence. We have about 1.2 officers per thousand. The national average is about 2.7.
Right.
She's going to refund our state police. We're going to work in collaboration with local municipalities and the federal government. She wants to repeal Measure 110, which was the measure that legalized hard drugs. She wants to be able to work with community and build community policing the way it's intended. So that way the community and law enforcement is working together to make sure that we're getting these drugs off the streets. And one message that we've been very adamant about, especially for me as a prior law enforcement officer, is, after November 8th, I promise you, the cartels and the gangs no longer will have a safe haven here in the state of Oregon. We will come after you.
That's really good news. These are reasonable policies. You hear a lot of yelling. We just saw the president give his closing speech on the election. Talking about extremists and extremist policies. Really, and what you describe is what Republicans run on too. Obviously Christine's running on that, but it's also, it used to be what Democrats that might have been called blue dog Democrats in the center or center left would run on reasonable policies like the ones you described. Just like, I was one of the leading advocates on the Republican side for criminal justice reform. Now, we had different degrees of criminal justice reform on either side, but I've worked with folks across the aisle and come to successful approaches to different areas of criminal justice reform that don't result in rising crime rates through the roof when you combine them with defunding the police. So that's good. That's good news, because the cartels really are almost at will able to operate as they wish in most states in the country these days, because of the just massive flood coming across the southern border that's nearly 100% uncontrolled right now. Well, what about the homelessness? I heard Christine talk about it in one of her talks just yesterday, and what's her plan to deal with that? Because myself, one of the issues that I've talked about a lot with folks in town halls is mental health and mental health care, and how we changed some policies several decades ago that are impacting what we see on the streets today with homelessness, and that we need to do some reform in that area. But it's more than just mental health, isn't it?
It is. So Oregon, we have a perfect storm happening right now, because when you legalize hard drugs, you don't fund mental health appropriately, and then you have defunded the police. This is what we have. And so when people are addicted to drugs, as we all know, it's difficult to retain employment. It's difficult to retain housing. And so we have a lot of people that are struggling with not just drug addiction, but with mental health disorders that are now living in the streets throughout the entire state. And so Christine will issue a state of emergency on day one when she gets inaugurated into office. And that will allow her to be able to use the power of the government and cut through all of this red tape. I will tell you that for myself, I'm an executive that works in state government. We have created so many policies, and we have created so much loopholes that we honestly don't do anything with. We just say it's a measure of accountability, but it's not. It makes it incredibly difficult for our community-based organizations to work with government. And so there's a disconnect there. Christine is going to, through the state of emergency order, she's going to be able to get all of those resources together. We're going to be able to cut through that red tape, get the money quicker to community-based organizations. We're going to be able to work with the population, and we're going to be able to provide a level of accountability to people that are providing that care, but also providing accountability to the people that are trying to seek care also.
Mm-hmm. That's good news, and that's the approach that needs to be taken. And I think we could get agreement on all sides when we talk about policies like community-based policing, community approach to the homelessness issue, especially about working through the mental health issues and holding those folks accountable too. Because I think a lot of average citizens think about it and they go, man, we can't just let people off without being held accountable, or they end up right back on the street. Exactly. So we've got to have a measure of accountability from all sides. Do you think that there will be a pushback from the local level? Like I know the mayor of Portland he's pretty progressive. I mean, is there? Hopefully, there's a plan to get those kind of folks on board.
Well, I think the mayor is feeling the heat from his decisions, and so is the city council. Mm-hmm. And I think that they've put themselves in a position that they must respond. And so they're going to need to put their political differences aside, because they are going to need the help of the governor to have a statewide coordinated approach to being able to help solve the issues that we have today. And that's what we're lacking right now. We don't have leadership from our governor. We don't have leadership from our state agencies to be able to help local counties and municipalities and just individual people that are trying to get help. And so right now we are just a state that does not have, we don't have our moral compass pointed in the right direction, and we don't have leadership that's pushing us in the right direction.
Yeah, and that takes a leader that's comfortable in their own skin and comfortable with their ideas to develop that moral courage and then transmit it to others. And I use the term infect others around them with that. And it seems like Christine is that kind of leader, and I look forward to seeing that happening. The economic plan. What we've been talking about on homelessness and crime, they're really results of bad policy. Really, a lot of it is. You can't put it all on bad policy, but the levels that we're seeing really are the results of bad policy. And what's Christine's plan on economic policy to work with the rest of the government and the communities to make a change in that, if she can?
Well, Christine is very big on supporting our small businesses. I think here with the Democratic Party, what we have done is we have demonized people. We like you until you get to a certain wealth status. Once you become wealthy, you're no longer our friend. We need to tax you. We need to, overtax you, and now you're the problem. Christine doesn't view people that way. Christine wants to see people have generational wealth. She wants to see businesses prosper. Right now, what we're seeing in Oregon is too many businesses are closing because they can't afford to stay open. There's too much vandalism. There's too much theft that's going on, that even major name brand stores cannot keep their doors open due to the level of crime. And I think once we provide that level of safety, people will start going back and having confidence and being able to go outside, being able to go to restaurants and go to the shopping mall and purchase things. So that's, I think that's step one. When it comes to the second thing is, no more tax hikes, no more of these really far left Democratic taxations and policies that is not proving to be beneficial to all of us. We continue to increase our tax revenue by billions of dollars, and yet we are last in almost every single major category. This is a problem here in Oregon. It's not about how much money we can generate. We are terrible at managing, taxpayer money. Christine will come in here, be able to re-regulate our tax code here, be able to provide small businesses the opportunity to actually pay their employees a more livable wage, be able to increase and expand their operations. She wants to work with other foreign entities so that way we can get our trade going overseas that we are providing that level of opportunity for people to be able to expand just from their local markets now into the international market. She is very intelligent when it comes to managing budgets and looking how do we make that grow. And she knows that and she understands that because she comes from a standpoint of she understands that a business can be open today and be closed tomorrow. Democrats right now, they're not focused on that. They don't understand that pain of the American taxpayer. They just want to continue taxing you so that way they can retain power and say, look at all the things that we've passed and look at all the money that we've spent. But yet right now we can't even afford to gas our vehicles.
Yeah, it's really sad. You know, in pre-pandemic, about 85% of all jobs were created by small business owners. I think that's dropped. Hopefully, as part of that plan, she's got some ideas on how to incentivize small businesses to be recreated or created again, maybe along different lines, operational lines, and we can get folks that were in small business back into it and increase that job creation with good pay. And those are all common sense type approaches that can't be anything but good for everybody, whether they've been successful or not. You know, because the whole idea about the American dream was that everybody's got the same opportunity. And I love talking to wealthy people and meeting them because they, by and large, deserve to be where they are at, and they've pulled up by their own bootstraps. A lot of them. Very few people are born into wealth these days in really large numbers, to be honest with you. The education is another key issue that I picked up on in observing the race in Oregon, George. What's going on with education out there? I mean, we see moms across the country going and talking to school boards and letting them know that they're not happy with some of the indoctrinations that are going on. And the pandemic has caused dramatic test score drops that have just been released recently. And they want to know what the plan is to get their kids' education back on track and get away from these political indoctrination and ideological type things that are going on. Do we see similar things in Oregon as far as the failures go? I'm betting the moms are all over Christine if she's got a good plan for that.
So here in Oregon, we rank in the bottom when it comes to our education system for our children from, K through college. Unfortunately, our graduation rates are 46th in the nation, and our children rank 48th when it comes to reading and math proficiency. And, when we look just about less than a decade ago, we were second in the nation, and now we are 48th in the nation. Right now, what's happened under the single party control is that the Democratic Party has pushed a certain education value and really has created policies off the back of Black and brown people. So they removed standardized testing and they said, we're removing standardized testing because we understand the inequality that has happened in the education system to Black and brown individuals in our education system. And yes, I do agree with that, but that is not, that's not our fault. Assume responsibility. We never asked to take away standardized testing. You never had that conversation with our community. And now you're taking away standards for your own political advantage off of our pain and suffering. Why don't you just accept responsibility for your failed leadership in our education system and make a difference? Start providing equitable opportunities for children, for all children, regardless of race, religion, or creed, the proper education. But they don't want to do that, and they haven't done that. And right now, what we've done is we've taken parents out of our school curriculum. There's too many things that are not being taught that should be taught to children, too many resources that are not being provided to our teachers and to our students. And now that we've come out of this pandemic, it has really opened everybody's eyes to what's really happening. And I will say that as a parent, and I have two children in the public school education system here in Portland, or in Oregon, I'm sorry. I have been pretty amazed at how much of a disconnect there is between working teachers and the unions they represent. The unions, those head bosses, are not really listening to what the teachers are saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see that there is some sort of divide and sort of rub between working teachers and the unions and what they're trying to negotiate for. And right now, this is, again, another failure of single party control. When you have, all of these unions and Democratic leadership, they're all on the same page and they're all marching our kids right off of a steep cliff. And that really needs to stop. And I will say that with some of the rhetoric that we hear, I think from both the right and the left, I think there's legitimacy in each person's side. But what we try to do is we try to demonize each other. We try to say, oh, Republicans are just all ultra MAGA Republicans, or, Democrats, they're all just super liberal and, don't believe in certain things. But there is truth in some of these things. And that's where we need to be able to come together as parents, as part of government, to be able to provide a better education. Right now, what we are seeing in Oregon is that in certain parts that are a little bit more progressive, when it comes to sexual orientation, I do not agree with some of the teachings and the things that they are showing our children. And it changes kids. It changes kids forever. I think that there is an appropriate age that we can start teaching that, but not at such a young age of, third, fourth, fifth grade, teaching them some of these things that are really confusing our children. And I think that movement really needs to stop, and we really need to start focusing more on learning to love each other, learning to respect each other, and learning actually providing a better education and opportunities for our children to succeed in math, reading, and science.
Yeah, and I think that's why parents are getting more involved, and I encourage all parents to get more involved. Run for school board. I don't care what your political leanings are, but run for school board if you're a parent that has kids in a public school, especially, because that's where those decisions really should be made, and that's the position you can fight from to make sure that those decisions are made, and they're made for the right reasons. That they're and you mentioned timing. Look, timing is everything, and if you indoctrinate little children with a particular set of beliefs, then they're going to carry that through to adulthood. And I think you see that in some of the changes of the numbers that we're seeing that are being reported this year on folks that have what's the best way to say it, that have a particular view of themselves when it comes to sexual orientation, because indoctrination is very effective on young people. And the younger they are, the more effective it becomes if you're going to do that. And we shouldn't be doing that. I agree with you. We shouldn't be doing that. And it's up to the parents really to take action and get control of these school boards and get these decisions fixed, quite frankly, because our children are suffering because of it. Well, George, we're coming up to the end of the interview. What's your message on Election Day? This is Election Day, and this message is going to go out to as many people as I can get it to that afternoon.
Yeah, so show up and vote, participate. It's not too late to cast those ballots, and actually take 30 minutes to look at the candidates that you're considering voting for, and throw out all of the rhetoric, right? Commercials are commercials. They're all trying to influence you to be able to vote for their candidate. But actually look at the person. Don't just say, oh, they're a Republican, I'm not going to vote for them. Or, they're just a Democrat, I'm not going to vote for them. Really read up on who these candidates are and what the real issues are. If a candidate is actually campaigning on things that are affecting your community, then they're probably the right person to vote for. But if they're just throwing rhetoric and just talking about things that don't even impact our daily lives, then you probably know that that is not the right person to vote for. But we've got to participate. Just like you and I, we've participated in this democracy by enlisting into our military. And we did that for the opportunity for so many others to be able to vote. And so don't let your vote go to waste. It does matter. And we do have an election system that we can be confident in if we show up to vote.
Well, thank you, George. I appreciate it. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being a voice of reason amongst a very loud clamoring of unreasonableness that we hear in our civil society these days. God bless you. God bless Oregon and the United States of America, and good luck.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you. Well, friends, thanks for joining me this week. And like George Carillo said, get out there and vote for the person that's running on policies that will affect your daily life. And that is Republican Christine Drazan out of Oregon. Good luck to all of her team, and good luck to America on this November 8th. We need you to go vote, and vote for the person that's going to do best for our country and for our daily lives. Most of the places, that's Republicans this week. God bless you. God bless the United States. I'm Rob Maness. Until next week, I'll see you out there.